I knew before I even opened the envelope. My hands trembled as I pulled out the paper, and there it was. I had failed. Standing in the hallway of the exam center, I felt the world go silent around me. People moved past me, some celebrating, others disappointed, but I couldn't move. This test was supposed to change everything. It was my path to a stable job, a way to stop working to exhausting part-time shifts, a chance to build something real. My parents had been so hopeful when I registered. Now that future had vanished. I walked outside with no destination in mind. The city buzzed with life, but I felt completely alone. My eyes burned, but no tears came. I found a bench in a small park and sat there watching people go about their day, feeling like something inside me had quietly broken. All those months of studying, waking up early, staying up late, sacrificing everything, and still I had failed. When evening came, I dragged myself home. My mother looked up from the kitchen and her smile faded when she saw my face. I told her I had eaten and went straight to my room. I placed the envelope on my desk, face down, and lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling. That night, sleep never came. The words echoed endlessly in my mind. You failed. You failed. You failed. The following days blurred together. I went to work at the supermarket, stayed quiet, kept my head down. During breaks, I sat alone, avoiding conversations about success and exams. I felt tired in a way that rest couldn't fix. At home, my parents gave me space, but I could feel their silent worry. The distance between us grew even though we shared the same walls. One weekend, I cleaned my desk and packed away all my study materials. Each book reminded me of the hope I once carried. As I closed the drawer, something shifted inside me. I had been holding on too tightly to what I had lost. The next week, I passed a community center near my street. A sign listed simple courses: art, basic computers, communication skills. I stood there reading it over and over. I hadn't thought about learning anything new in months. I didn't go inside that day, but I returned a few days later and picked up a flyer. A woman at the desk smiled at me. That night, I told my mother about it. She looked surprised, then hopeful. I wasn't ready to commit, but saying it out loud felt like the first small step after a long fall. Slowly, I began noticing life again. Colors seemed brighter. Food tasted like something. I wasn't healed, but I wasn't frozen anymore. I decided to take a public speaking class, not because I was confident, but because I was tired of being afraid. My first session was terrifying. 7 nervous strangers sat in a small room while a kind teacher explained what we would learn. I barely spoke that day, but I stayed the full hour. Walking home afterward, I felt a strange peace. Every Wednesday evening, I left work and went to class. We practiced introducing ourselves, telling stories, describing objects. I made mistakes constantly, but so did everyone else. Nobody laughed, nobody judged. Week by week, my voice grew stronger. I started smiling again. This was mine, something private and healing that I didn't need to prove to anyone. In the third week, we had to share a personal experience. When my turn came, my knees felt weak and my hands were cold, but I stood up and spoke. I talked about starting my job, making mistakes, almost quitting, but choosing to stay and learn. When I finished, the teacher smiled and the room was quiet. I had done it. I had faced my fear and survived. The final session required a 2-minute talk. I chose to speak about learning to try again, about falling hard and standing up slowly. I didn't mention the exam, but everyone understood. When I finished, the room clapped softly. A woman came to me afterward and said my words had touched her. I walked home that night carrying a small certificate. It was just paper, but it meant I could begin again. At work, things changed too. I spoke more freely with customers. I asked my manager if I could help train new staff. When she said yes, something in me brightened. I started taking on small responsibilities, checking inventory, writing reports. I wasn't just the person who failed anymore. I was someone who kept showing up. I signed up for a writing course next. For 6 weeks, I wrote about memories, small moments that shaped me. I shared one story about my first day at work, and the teacher later told me I had a quiet but clear voice. She said I should keep writing, not for others, but for myself. One morning, my manager called me into her office. There was a full-time position available in the front office. Nothing glamorous, but more responsibility and room to grow. She thought of me first. I accepted the next day. It wasn't the path I had planned, but it was solid ground beneath my feet. On my first day in the new role, I arrived early and worked with steady hands and a calm voice. At lunch, I sat alone and smiled. I thought about how far I had traveled, not in distance, but in courage. I had fallen hard, stayed down for a while, then stood back up. That was my real victory. I still think about the exam sometimes. The disappointment lives in me, but it doesn't define me anymore. It's just one chapter in a longer story. Maybe I'll take that test again someday. Maybe I won't. What matters is that I found my way back to myself. I learned that one failure doesn't write your ending. Sometimes the path you imagined closes, but others appear if you keep walking. I didn't get the future I planned, but I found something better. The strength to begin again, the courage to keep growing, and the quiet knowledge that I am enough, exactly as I am, right now.